And I'm curious from like a hygiene perspective, but we know from like design of kids hospitals that they don't necessarily have to be. Like we put a lot of thought into making like the Children's Hospital here in Chicago was very interactive, and there's a lot of thought into making it a place where kids are already scared and like trying to relieve fears. And we don't give that same level of care to adults.
Correct.
But that doesn't mean we can't.
Sure.
And that doesn't mean we shouldn't. And so I'm curious from your perspective of what could we do to ease adults' anxiety in spaces like this, to make it more inviting, but still appropriate for healthcare.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fantastic question. I agree with you. Like, the Children's Hospital is really fantastic and a different kind of model. You know, I mean, in some ways I don't know, but I imagine a process. So as somebody with also a design background, I think it would be really important to actually ask people what they want and what they need, and to look at what things are reduce anxiety and make people feel more at ease, and then work from there. Hopefully with some really creative people to bring those things to life. But I think, you know, starting with that, you know, with that community or with that population is the way I would design that process, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because we know that being in an institution like this can literally make people crazy. Like there's institutionalized hallucinations from, you know, being in a long-term care facility can literally make people go insane, you know? And so this isn't necessarily good patient-centered care. Totally.
Yeah, I've got a friend right now whose dad is in his 80s in Germany, and he just had to have like a double valve replacement. And afterwards, he's just gotten into such a depression because he feels like he's stuck at the hospital, he can't move, and blah, blah, blah. And it's, I think like we need to be looking at what can help bring people strength and calmness and joy and all of that. I mean, as a pretty healthy person, I wouldn't mind like a gymnasium, like like a climbing wall in the hallway, you know?
But there's a lot of thought of like trying to get people to recover at home, like trying to move healthcare into their homes.
Totally.
But I'm curious, like, could we use a more the design perspective for the people who can't be at home?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Frager had spaces that at least the materials and the color palette felt a lot warmer. And they were, at least the waiting rooms, I mean, I thought this was like super smart design. All the waiting spaces were very open, well lit, and usually had glass on one side where you're looking at fairly beautiful spaces. So that was pretty calming. It was just like all the care spaces were like locked inside, no windows, no natural light. And again, these more industrial materials, some of which is probably needed, but some of it's just expediency. I mean, I do also think, like, if you think about like the great generation or grandparents' generation kind of thing, like my grandparents would probably laugh. They're like, it's a hospital. What do you expect? You want to spend money on that? Right? But I agree with you. And it is a choice. And, you know, I think in some ways it's what I see often. So I do a lot of public video work too. And I get sometimes brought into these projects where they're like, we built a video wall in our lobby and we want content. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, the first piece was done by the architects. And I'm like, wait, what? And it's like, usually, just like, it's not art. It's like, it's a thing that fills a space because somebody thought like, what we need is a video wall. Because everybody has a video wall now, so we have to keep up with everybody. But it's not really thought about in terms of programmatically. And I think often these spaces, it's like that as well. It's like, we need a certain number of spaces, we have a certain flow of people, we have infrastructure needs. So that takes precedence. So, you know, that also means like, well, we're gonna have an ethnographer and a designer and an artist on every team, right? To bring these alternative perspectives and shape those design outcomes. It's a big ask.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Oh, thanks.
put a smoked glass like over the art?
In here?
Yes.
So no, that's all digital.
Oh, that's all.
So that's Photoshop. It's Photoshop magic.
These are the smokes.
The smoked glass are these panels right here.
Oh, okay, got it.
Right, so when you look in it, it's like bronzed. It's so weird, but I really like it. Reminds me of House on the Rock.
Yeah, yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah. So yeah, the intervention is all digital. It's slightly blurred and then darkened. Yeah. But the intention is also, at least in certain instances, like you can kind of make out what it is.
Right, right. That's what I was wondering if that was intentional.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to ask, out of all of the images that you took, what was your process in deciding which ones would be displayed in the space? And also, like, how did you decide which ones were going to be displayed, like, on the smoked glass?
Good question. So the smoked glass, so some of this is practical. Smoked glass is very vertical. The horizontal pieces wouldn't work. I do have a couple horizontal pieces I really like. So they're here, not on the glass. In terms of which ones, I don't know, like, in many ways, there are more images from the end than the middle and the beginning. And I did originally want it to be more balanced, but I am drawn to certain images and certain qualities of light in these particular images. And some of the way in which the infrastructure, like, you know, here's like an alarm, like right next to the image. Like, if that was at a gallery, I'd be going out of my mind if that was the person who made that image. You know, or like the fake plants that are like overwhelming the image, or the exit sign. So I was interested in those, like, those kind of interventions or that collision between the institutional and then this art sort of stuff that's going on. And in this case, I think it's just weird. Like, I in the future, I see a future where I will be building those at scale.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know who's going to host them, but I really want to build them.
So I have a question. You mentioned a little bit about shooting most of this on your phone. And, you know, like in one situation, not using a phone but a regular camera.
Yeah.
Can you talk some about that experience? Do you usually shoot from your phone? Or
I shoot a lot with my phone. I'm like a lazy photographer. Like, I've had professional cameras with all the lenses, and I'll take them on a shoot and I'll do it. Like, I will. But on the everyday, like, I have just never been somebody who's going to be carrying 4 pounds plus the other lenses because I can never decide.
Yeah.
So like
You know,
shooting
when-
on your phone and for this instance was like just part of how you're practicing?
No, it's stealth. It's stealth. Like, there's no way. Like, when I was at the clinic, I brought my regular camera. So I was like, I live here, I'm like really close by. We were going back and forth, and it was a private clinic, and like, they got really upset because I pulled out my camera. I'm like, no, I'm just shooting the art. They're like, whoa, you can't do that. Like, this, you know, this is a research facility. And I'm like, I'm literally photographing the art. That the owner, that the guy who started the clinic, shot in his gardens, which I thought was kind of interesting. Like, it's cool and narcissistic.
Yeah.
Like, I own everything. Here's my art. You know, it's not enough that I own the newspaper. So it was really about being stealth. But I also firmly believe that, like, these, I just got an image. These are like super powerful tools. And with a little bit of tweaking, you know, a little bit of manual control, like, you can get amazing images off of them. So it's just a camera, you know. Yeah.
And I think that kind of feeling like I can't make this until I have this piece of equipment or something can sometimes get in the way,
Totally.
you know, and it's just like, no, don't wait, just work with what you have.
You have to work with what you have.
What-
Yeah, and you know, doing things in spaces you're not supposed to do things in, like, that's fun.
Yeah.
I've got a whole sequence in my film where I went. I had some GoPros on my body at a disco at this Nazi resort, and I was like, you know, there's no way they would have let us in with camera equipment. It was a nightclub, and
Yeah.
not in a million years. But you know, GoPro down here, nobody notices. You just kind of do the same. Yeah.
Any other questions or? Well,
AMA.
yeah, right? Let's give Matt a round of applause. Anything you wanna plug or?
What do I want to play? On my website, if you're really into the work, I have a book that collects all the images as well as
I forgot, it's in
two
the
sets
office.
of poetry,
Put it up.
two poets rather, who also lost partners. So the poetry is like devastatingly good and
Yeah.
devastating.
I meant to bring it over, to put it out. It'll be here through the
So
rest of the show.
that's happening.
Yeah, you can find all the info on the
I'm on Instagram.